Deep red Rome, Georgia, Senator Jon Ossoff is kicking off a canvas push and picking a fight on the biggest headlines in Washington, aimed straight at his GOP opponent, Congressman Mike Collins.
Atlanta News First reporter Abby Source explains what both campaigns are now counting on.
Volunteers going door to door in one of Georgia's most reliably Republican areas. The strategy is to go after persuadable voters and energize supporters. Senator Jon Ossoff stepping into a warm welcome at the Democratic field office in Rome, Georgia, then sending volunteers out to knock doors for Democrats up and down the ballot.
We're thrilled to have Senator Jon Ossoff here with us today.
And he came here with a bigger message, blaming President Donald Trump for dragging the country back into 2020 after his Thursday night primetime speech.
All-time record high prices for rent and groceries and health care. And the President of the United States is giving a primetime presidential address on his unresolved grievances about the 2020 election.
Ossoff also pointed to new scrutiny around his opponent, Congressman Mike Collins, after CNN reported on white nationalist and anti-Semitic content tied to Collins' son-in-law, who lives on Collins' property. Collins' spokesperson says the congressman has always condemned all forms of anti-Semitism, pointing to his pro-Israel voting record. Ossoff says that's not enough. Collins needs to answer questions.
This is serious stuff.
Collins is also leaning hard into election security, pushing voter ID and the SAVE Act, while his campaign accuses Ossoff of catering to coastal billionaire donors. The fight now, Ossoff trying to cut Republican margins in places like Rome, while Collins' team works to run up the score. The Democratic Party of Georgia has just opened 30 field offices like this one across the state, hiring more than 100 employees. In Rome, I'm Abby Source.